She shouted, "Kneel or die." The human just smiled. "Try me, HFY." The throne hall of the Karzeth Empire was vast enough to swallow cities. Its ceiling curved like the inside of a planet, glowing with slow-moving light patterns that showed conquered systems. Tall alien nobles stood in rows, their armor sharp and dark, their many eyes fixed on the small figure walking across the polished floor. He was human. No armor, no visible weapon, just a dark uniform, clean boots, and calm steps. His name was Elias Mercer, Earth's envoy. The guards expected him to hesitate. Every other species did. The pressure in the hall was designed for that. Gravity was heavier near the throne. The air carried a low-frequency hum that made hearts race and knees weaken. Many visitors collapsed before reaching the center. Elias did not slow down. At the far end of the hall, the Empress rose. She was taller than any being present, her form wrapped in living metal that shifted like liquid stone. Her crown floated above her head, held by unseen force. Her eyes burned with cold authority. She had ruled for centuries. Worlds had surrendered at the sound of her voice. She lifted one clawed hand. "Kneel," she shouted, her voice amplified by the hall itself, shaking the floor. "Kneel or die." Every being in the chamber dropped to the ground instantly. Nobles, warriors, advisors all pressed their foreheads to the floor, all except one. Elias stopped walking. He stood straight. A murmur rippled through the hall. Guards stiffened. Weapons powered up with sharp, humming sounds. The Empress narrowed her eyes. The human looked up at her and smiled, not wide, not mocking, just calm, almost curious. "Try me," he said softly. The hall fell into silence so deep it felt unreal. The Empress stepped forward, disbelief flickering across her ancient face. No one had ever spoken those words to her and lived. "You dare," she said, her voice lower now, more dangerous. "You stand before me unbowed, you refuse my command." "Yes," Elias replied, his voice was steady. "I do." Scanners focused on him. Data streams flashed across the displays held by the court scientists. His heart rate was normal. His muscles were relaxed. There were no signs of panic. That made them uneasy. "You are fragile," the Empress said. "Your kind is young, your worlds are weak." "Why do you think you are different?" Elias tilted his head slightly, as if considering the question. "Because we are still here." The Empress raised her hand again. The gravity in the hall increased. Cracks spread across the floor. Even the guards strained under the sudden weight. Elias' boots sank a little into the stone. He did not kneel. His knees bent slightly as his body adjusted, muscles tightening, spine straightening. He exhaled once slowly and then stood firm again. The nobles whispered. This level of force crushed armored soldiers. The human wore cloth. "Interesting," the Empress said. She gestured, and invisible pressure slammed into Elias' mind. Psychic dominance, refined over centuries. Species had gone mad under it. Some had died screaming. Elias' eyes closed for a moment. Memories surfaced, not fear, training, long hours in silent rooms, simulations of disaster. Humanity had learned painfully how to survive stress that never ended. His jaw tightened. Then he opened his eyes, still smiling. "You should stop," he said calmly. "You are wasting energy." A sharp hiss escaped one of the advisors. That was not possible. Humans were not known for psychic resistance. The Empress circled him slowly, her heavy steps echoing. "Tell me, human," she said, "what happens if I decide to make an example of you?" Elias met her gaze. "Then you will learn something important." "And what is that?" "That humans don't kneel because they are ordered to," he replied. "We kneel when we choose to." The Empress laughed, a deep, metallic sound. "Choice is an illusion given to the weak." Elias shook his head. "No, choice is what we have left when everything else is taken." She stopped in front of him, towering over him. Her shadow covered his entire body. "I have erased species older than your son," she said. "I have ended bloodlines that believed themselves unbreakable." Elias did not look away. "So have we." That earned true attention. The Empress studied him more carefully now. "Explain." "Humans have faced extinction more times than we can count," Elias said. "Plagues, wars, failing stars, our own mistakes. Every time we adapt or we disappear, and we are very good at adapting." The Empress straightened. Bold words from a single unarmed creature. Elias slowly raised his empty hands. "Unarmed does not mean harmless." At a silent signal, the guards advanced. Their armor was thick, their weapons ancient and deadly. The nobles watched eagerly. This was the moment they expected blood. Elias did not move. The lead guard raised his weapon and fired a control pulse meant to paralyze. It vanished, not deflected, not absorbed, Gone. The air shimmered briefly, then returned to normal. The guard froze. Elias lowered his hands. That was your first warning. The Empress's eyes widened just a fraction. What did you do? She demanded. I asked for permission, Elias replied simply. From whom? From the systems you built, he said. They are impressive, old, powerful, but they follow rules. And humans are very good at learning rules. The displays across the hall flickered, defensive systems paused, energy readings spiked, then stabilized under new parameters. The advisors panicked. He is interfering with core protocols? That is impossible. The Empress raised her hand sharply, silencing them. She stared at Elias with something new in her expression. Interest. You came here knowing this could happen, she said. Yes, and you still chose to stand. Yes, she considered him for a long moment. The hall waited, breath held. Why? She asked. Elias' smile softened. Because if I knelt today, you would demand the same tomorrow, and the day after that. Eventually, you would demand it from my entire species. And if you refuse, she asked. Then we talk, Elias said. Or we prepare. The Empress turned back toward her throne, her long cloak trailing behind her. She raised her voice so all could hear. This audience is not finished, she declared. The human will remain standing. Shock spread through the hall. For now, she added. Elias exhaled slowly, tension easing just a little. He knew this was only the beginning. But humanity had taken its first step. Standing, the silence in the throne hall did not fade after the Empress spoke. The human still stood. Elias Mercer felt the weight in the room shift. It was not just gravity anymore. It was attention. Thousands of eyes watched him closely, not with mockery now, but with caution. The Empress had allowed him to remain standing, and that single decision changed everything. She returned to her throne and lowered herself into it, the living metal flowing around her like water finding rest. Human, she said, her voice calm but sharp, you will explain yourself fully. You will not hide behind riddles. Elias inclined his head slightly, not a bow. Just respect. Fair. The Empress lifted one finger. The gravity increased again, but this time in slow steps, like a rising tide instead of a crashing wave. Elias felt it press into his bones. His breathing deepened. His boots dug further into the floor. His muscles worked harder, but his face stayed relaxed. Years of training returned to him. Long nights in sealed chambers, simulations where pressure never stopped rising. Lessons learned the hard way. He stayed upright. Around him, nobles struggled even while kneeling. Some trembled, a few collapsed flat, unable to hold even that position. The Empress watched closely. Interesting, she said again. You resist without anger, without challenge in your eyes. Elias nodded once. Anger wastes energy, she gestured again. The gravity stopped increasing. Tell me about your people, she said. Not your words, your truth. Elias took a moment before answering. He knew every word would matter. Humans are not the strongest, he said. We are not the oldest. We are not the fastest. When we reached the stars, many thought we would not last long. A low hum spread through the hall as translation systems adjusted to his tone. We survived because we learned limits, Elias continued. We learned pain. We learned loss. And instead of breaking, we learned to plan. The Empress leaned forward slightly. Many species claim this? Yes, Elias said. Most of them disappear. That earned a quiet reaction from the court. The Empress tapped the arm of her throne. The air shimmered and a projection appeared in the center of the hall. It showed a human city burning. Ships fell from the sky. People ran. You know fear, she said. I see it here. Elias studied the image. His expression did not change. That was the first collapse. We nearly ended ourselves. And yet you stand, the Empress said. Because we learned, Elias replied. Fear teaches faster than comfort. She changed the image. Another disaster, another world, another failure. Each time, Elias said quietly, we adapted. We built safeguards. We trained minds, not just weapons. The Empress studied him in silence. Then she made a small motion. The projection vanished. Enough stories, she said. I want proof. At her signal, the floor around Elias shifted. Lines of light formed a circle. The temperature dropped sharply, a containment field. Elias recognized it instantly, not from human records but from patterns. The field compressed space inward, designed to force the body into submission. He exhaled slowly. The field activated. Pressure wrapped around him like invisible hands. His joints screamed, his muscles shook, his vision blurred for a second. Several nobles leaned forward, expecting him to fall. Elias bent slightly at the knees, then stopped. He adjusted his stance, spreading his weight, letting the pressure move through him instead of against him. He focused on breathing. In, out, slow, the pressure increased. Ilia's teeth clenched, sweat formed at his temples, but he stayed standing. Inside the field, small instruments flared to life, scanning his body. Data spiked. His nervous system showed controlled stress, not panic. His brain activity was organized, focused. The scientists whispered urgently, "This is not natural. His species should not tolerate this." The Empress raised her hand and the field powered down. Ilia staggered slightly, then recovered. He looked up. "Was that enough proof?" he asked calmly. The Empress did not answer immediately. Instead, she stood. The hall tensed. She stepped down from her throne and walked toward him again, slower this time. When she reached the edge of the circle, she stopped. "You could have knelt," she said. "It would have ended quickly." Ilias nodded. "Yes. Why didn't you?" "Because then you would never see us as equals," he replied. The Empress studied his face. "You seek equality with an empire that bends galaxies." "No," Ilias said. "I seek understanding." She tilted her head. "Explain." "Humans do not want your throne," he said. "We do not want your worlds. We want to exist without being crushed for refusing to kneel." The Empress looked back at her court. Many avoided her gaze. "You threaten nothing," she said, "and yet you prepare." Ilias met her eyes. "Preparation is not threat, it is survival." A pause followed. Then the Empress made a decision. She raised both hands. The lights in the hall dimmed. The doors sealed. A ripple of unease spread among the nobles. "You will face my sentinels," she announced. "Not to destroy you, to measure you." Heavy steps echoed from behind the pillars. 3 figures emerged, tall, armored, silent. Their movements were smooth, almost graceful. The sentinels were legends, enforcers used only when certainty was required. Ilias shifted his weight slightly. His hands remained open. The first sentinel moved, faster than any organic being should. Ilias stepped aside just as a massive arm passed where his chest had been. He did not strike back. He redirected, using the sentinel's momentum. The second attacked from behind. Ilias ducked, rolled, and came back to his feet in one fluid motion. His breathing was heavier now, but his eyes were focused. The third sentinel activated a field meant to lock movement. Ilias froze for half a second. Then the field flickered. Human-made countermeasures hidden deep within his uniform adjusted automatically. Not weapons, safeguards. The field weakened just enough. Ilias moved. He touched the sentinel's armor at a specific joint and stepped away. The sentinel stopped, then powered down. Shock swept the hall. The other 2 halted, awaiting orders. Ilias stood between them, chest rising and falling steadily. "I am not here to fight," he said clearly, "but if tested, humans respond." The Empress slowly raised her hand. The sentinels withdrew. She looked at Ilias with something close to respect. "You smile less now," she noted. Ilias allowed himself a small breath. "Because this matters." The Empress returned to her throne. "This audience continues," she declared. "The human has not fallen." The nobles whispered, fear and awe mixing freely now. Ilias remained standing, and the empire was no longer certain who held the higher ground. Ilias Mercer could sense it even without looking. The fear was no longer aimed only at him. It had begun to turn inward, spreading among the nobles, the guards, the advisors. The Karzeth Empire was used to certainty, used to dominance, used to everyone kneeling, and now a human was still standing. The Empress sat quietly on her throne, her fingers resting against the living metal as if listening to it. Her eyes never left Ilias. "You adapt quickly," she said at last. "Faster than expected." Ilias did not relax. He knew better than that. "We have had a lot of practice." A low sound moved through the hall as systems came back online. The flicker of uncertainty passed across several displays before stabilizing. The advisors rushed to check readings, whispering urgently to one another. "The systems are responding normally now," one said. But the human interference left traces. The Empress lifted a hand, silencing them again. Her attention stayed on Ilias. "You touched my sentinels," she said. "No outsider has ever done that and remained alive." Ilias nodded. "They are impressive, very precise. And yet you disabled one without force." "I did not disable it," Ilias corrected gently. "I gave it a better option." The Empress's eyes narrowed slightly. "Explain." Ilias took a slow breath. "Humans learned long ago that breaking things creates enemies. Teaching systems to stop creates space to talk." The Empress leaned back, studying him with new caution. "You speak as if you expect negotiation." "I do," Ilias replied. That word echoed through the hall, negotiation. It was not something the Empire often allowed. One of the high nobles shifted nervously. "Empress," he said, "this human is dangerous. He disrupts order by existing." Elias turned his head slightly toward the noble, then back to the Empress. He did not interrupt. The Empress did not look away from Elias as she spoke. "Order that cannot survive a question is already weak." The noble fell silent. The Empress rose again, slowly this time, her full height stretching toward the ceiling. The lights dimmed further, and the conquered stars on the walls faded into shadow. "You have shown endurance," she said, "control, intelligence, but none of this answers the most important question." Elias waited. "Why did humanity send you?" she asked. "Not an army, not a fleet, one human." Elias' expression softened slightly. "Because armies threaten. Fleets escalate. A single human invites a decision." The Empress studied him. "And if I had killed you?" "Then humanity would still make the same choice," Elias said, "but with less hope." Silence followed. Then, slowly, the Empress extended one hand. The floor behind Elias opened. A platform rose, carrying a bound figure. Gasps rippled through the hall. The figure was human, worn, bruised, alive. Elias' smile vanished. He took one step forward before stopping himself. The Empress watched him closely, missing nothing. "You are not the first human to enter my domain," she said. "This one was captured near our borders, a scout vessel, silent, curious." Elias forced his breathing to slow again. "Is he alive?" "Yes," the Empress said, "because he knelt." Elias closed his eyes for a brief moment. When he opened them, his gaze was steady again, but something had changed. The calm was still there, but now it was sharper, focused. "You are using him to test me," Elias said. "I am," the Empress agreed. "Kneel and he lives in comfort, stand and his fate becomes uncertain." Every eye in the hall locked onto Elias. The trap was clear, kneel or die. This time it was not just his life. Elias looked at the bound human. The man met his eyes, fear visible but controlled. He gave a small shake of his head. "Do not kneel." Elias swallowed. The Empress smiled faintly. "Your choice defines your species." Elias did not answer immediately. Instead, he spoke quietly. "Release him." The Empress laughed softly. "You do not command me." "No," Elias said, "but I can show you why this test fails." The Empress raised an eyebrow. "Show me." Elias turned slightly so the court could hear him. "Humans value life," he said. "We fight for it, protect it, mourn it, but we do not trade our future for one moment of comfort." The bound human stiffened. Elias continued. "If I kneel today, you will take more tomorrow. Another human, another world, another choice. That path never ends." The Empress's smile faded. "You would sacrifice one of your own?" Elias met her gaze. "No, I would trust him." He turned his head and spoke clearly. "We stand together." The bound human inhaled sharply. Then he nodded. The Empress's expression hardened. "Very well." She lifted her hand. Energy surged around the platform. Elias reacted instantly. "Now," he said. The hall systems flickered again, but this time they did not return to normal. Hidden protocols activated, not attacks, overrides. Human-designed logic buried inside shared networks planted carefully over years of quiet contact. The platform froze, the energy field stalled. The chains unlocked and fell away. The bound human collapsed free. Chaos erupted. Guards raised weapons. Systems screamed warnings. Advisors shouted. The Empress stepped back, shock breaking through her control. "What have you done?" Elias' voice cut through the noise. "Prepared." The freed human rolled off the platform and was pulled behind Elias by an invisible field that snapped into place around both of them. "I told you," Elias said, breathing harder now. "Humans are very good at learning rules." The Empress stared at the frozen systems, the halted guards, the silent sentinels. "You infiltrated my empire," she said slowly. "No," Elias replied. "We cooperated with your neighbors, shared technology, built trust. This was never an attack." "Then what is it?" she demanded. Elias looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of nobles and warriors alike. "It is a boundary," he said. "One you crossed today." The Empress's hands trembled slightly. "You stand in my hall and take what you want," she said. Elias shook his head. "We take what we protect." "There is a difference." For a long moment, neither moved. Then the Empress lowered her hands. The systems slowly released. Guards lowered their weapons. The sentinels remained still. The Empress looked at Elias as if seeing him clearly for the first time. "You did not kneel," she said. "You did not strike, you did not beg." Elias nodded. "Because we are not here to conquer." The Empress turned her gaze toward the stars on the wall, now dim and distant. This empire was built on fear, she said quietly. Yes, Elias replied. That is why it shook. She faced him again. The audience continues, she declared, and now we speak as equals. Elias stood tall. Humanity had not bowed, and the galaxy felt it, not because the Empress commanded silence, but because no one knew what came next. Elias Mercer stood where he had stood since the beginning, shoulders squared, breathing steady. Beside him, the freed humans slowly regained strength, supported by the faint protective field that hummed softly around them both. Guards remained frozen in place, weapons lowered but ready, eyes shifting between their ruler and the human who had never knelt. The Empress did not sit. She remained standing before her throne, her tall form still, her expression unreadable. The living metal around her no longer shimmered with threat. It was calm like a lake without wind. You forced my hand, she said at last. Elias answered honestly. You forced the moment. The Empress considered this. Few have ever survived doing either. That is why we sent one, Elias replied. Not many. A ripple of quiet passed through the hall. The nobles listened closely now. This was no longer a test of strength. It was something far more dangerous, a test of direction. The Empress stepped forward slowly until she stood only a few steps away from Elias. For the first time since he arrived, she was close enough that he could see the faint lines of age beneath her hardened presence. You stood when I ordered death, she said. You endured what breaks armies. You refused to kneel even when another human's life was placed before you. She paused. Why should I not destroy you now? Elias met her gaze without hesitation. Because you already know what happens if you try. The words were not a threat. They were a fact. The Empress studied him, then glanced at the silent sentinels, at the halted systems, at her court full of rulers who suddenly felt smaller. You could have taken my throne, she said. Your systems were inside my own. Elias shook his head. We never wanted it. Then what do you want? She asked. Elias answered carefully. Recognition, boundaries, a future where humans are not crushed simply for standing. The Empress turned away and walked back toward her throne. With each step, the weight in the room eased like pressure slowly lifting from deep water. She stopped before sitting. For centuries, she said, this empire has ruled through fear, kneel or die. That order built certainty. She looked back at Elias. And today one human made that certainty tremble. Elias said nothing. He knew better than to interrupt. The Empress lowered herself into the throne, but she did not relax. Certainty, she continued, is comfortable, but comfort weakens. She lifted her hand. The projection of conquered worlds reappeared around the hall, glowing faintly. Fear brought us power, she said, but power without challenge becomes blind. The images shifted. Some worlds faded, others dimmed. I see now, she said quietly, that humanity is not dangerous because it is strong. She turned her gaze to Elias. It is dangerous because it refuses to disappear. Elias allowed a small smile. We are stubborn. A few nobles exchanged uneasy looks. The Empress rose again, this time with purpose. Today, she declared, her voice echoing through the hall, the Karzeth Empire will not demand kneeling from humanity. Gasps broke the silence. Elias remained still, but relief touched his eyes. There will be no forced submission, the Empress continued. No silent erasure, no example made. She looked directly at him. This is not mercy, Elias nodded. It is respect. Yes, she said, earned. She turned to the court. Let it be known. Humanity stands as an equal power. Any harm done to them will be answered, not by fear, but by consequence. The nobles bowed, slower this time, deeper than before, not to Elias, to the decision. The freed human beside Elias finally found his voice. Sir, he whispered, we did it. Elias did not look at him yet. His eyes remained on the Empress. This is only the beginning, Elias said. Trust takes time. The Empress inclined her head slightly, a ruler's gesture, not a bow. Then let time begin. She gestured, and the protective field around the humans faded. Guards stepped back. Weapons powered down. The sentinels retreated into shadow. The throne hall felt different now. Lighter. Elias turned at last and helped the other human stand fully. The man nodded, steadying himself. We'll get you home, Elias said quietly. The Empress watched them. You humans value your own deeply, she said. Yes, Elias replied. That is why we survived. She studied him for a long moment, then spoke with unexpected softness. When you first smiled, she said, I believed it was arrogance. Elias allowed a small laugh. Most do. What was it? She asked. Confidence, he said, not in victory, in survival. The Empress looked away, thoughtful. The hall doors slowly opened, revealing the vast stars beyond. For the first time, the exit was not a threat. "Go," the Empress said. "Carry this moment back to your people." Elias inclined his head again. "We will." As the humans walked toward the light, the Empress spoke one final time. "Tell them," she said, "that the galaxy has learned something today." Elias paused at the threshold. "What is that?" The Empress met his eyes. "That when a human smiles in the face of power," she said, "it is not because they are weak." Elias smiled again. "It is because they already know how strong they are." He stepped forward.